our CTO, Morten Primdahl. He's going to be talking to you about some fun things. And we have a panel with Joe, Alex from Pager Duty, Kevin from New Relic, Jamie. Always forgetting my folks. Jamie from NDR is going to talk to you about how they use their Zendesk. And then at the end, I'll show you the future of where the Zendesk developer platform is going. So with that said, I'm going to turn the floor over to Morten Primdahl.
Thank you very much. So I'm Morten. I've been with Zendesk for 7 years, a little more than 8 months. So I'm one of the founders of Zendesk. And I'm going to talk to you a little about what I do and give you a little background on Zendesk and say where we're heading, what we're doing, working on, that sort of relevant to engineers and developers who use our APIs. So basically we went live with Zendesk in 2007 on Engineer, on the cloud, in the cloud, which was pretty massive back then. So EC2 wasn't an option, Amazon wasn't an option, Engineer was run by 3 guys who worked 24/7. I actually don't think any of them are around anymore. Anyway, we worked a lot with those guys back then, and the first instance of Zendesk was running on one of their virtual machines with 640 megabytes of memory, 3 Ruby processes, and then we grew from there until we have today, where we have like somewhere between 200 and 300 servers. So my job currently, back then it was like building everything, making everything happen, running everything. Now it's more about building a platform for engineers, primarily our own engineers, but as a nice side benefit, also all other engineers like to build stuff on APIs. So today I'm trying to build a platform that we can use in our offices, engineering offices in Melbourne, in Dublin, Copenhagen. So we have a way to interact between applications such that we can have independent release cycles, for example. It's a great freedom to have. And I will share sort of my perspective on our API and some of our current initiatives. So the V2 API, we started thinking about that 2 years ago. We've tried to end of life it for a while. Mr. Torres has tried to end of life it for a while. It takes a long time to change someone's dependency. It's a tricky thing, but we're really proud of what we've done with this and the features we provide and the consistency and the quality of the API compared to the V1 API, which was something we banged together over a weekend back in 2008. So it's a big step forward for us in terms of features and feature parity. And we think that this is sort of a big asset for us. If we didn't have that API today, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have any idea of how to turn Zendesk into this platform. To give you some sort of impression of how we use this ourselves, Zendesk is today a big distributed system. So we have 3 data centers. We have multiple pods. So a pod is like a collection of application servers, database servers, work servers, email servers. And we use the API between pods. We use our own API to do communication across the world, basically. We have computers in Dublin talking to computers in Sacramento and so on. And we've built lots of services on top of our API. New Zendesk is strictly built on our public V2 API, which means that feature parity and in terms of feature feature requirements is just massive, and we sort of one of our own bigger customers. We have lots of partners who make money by using our API. They import hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of tickets for new customers that come into Zendesk using API. Many times, like with a very high throughput and big services that keep on just dumping data into Zendesk. We use it in our own infrastructure. So for internal API calls between applications and services, for example, we have a new export service coming out. It's built on top of our API as well. Then of course people use it for whatever, for JavaScript widgets, for getting data, for creating data, staying on top of what happens. And we have entire engineering offices who are building new products these days on the API, where we have a team in Melbourne that are building apps for new Zendesk on the API. We have a team in Copenhagen that's building brand new customer service portal, and they integrate with classic Zendesk via the API. So that means that, actually I could tell you a story about that. So initially, when we got the Danish office, they were also typing away the same code base as us, and when we deploy, usually on Thursday, we deploy their stuff as well, things would break, they would be asleep, it would be a nightmare, and it just doesn't work. Communication is incredibly hard, even though we are from Denmark and we speak Danish, it's just still hard 9 hours away, it's just so hard to balance things. So instead, we realized we had to give them this chunk of Zendesk and say, guys, you work with this, here's the API you use, and this is again the V2 API. All our mobile apps work against the V2 API. So we're a big consumer of our own service here, and we rely on this being stable and steady and high quality as most of you guys do. So we try to keep it that way. If there's one thing I need to tell people who would like to work with our API, it's pretty much this. We all learned in college, wherever, that you program for the network, you program for failure, and the one thing we really ask people to do here is to program for this. This scenario here. If you get a 429 status code from our API and retry after it, so that means you should really just sleep for 31 seconds and then try again. This is the rate limit kicking in. If you anticipate this, then you're going to have a very smooth experience. If you don't anticipate this to happen, then you're going to have to deal with all sorts of error cases. We don't rate limit because we like doing it, saying no to people. We do it because we realize that perhaps 10% of our customers consume 50% of our resources, and we have to sort of be a little hard-handed on that and say, we can't keep doing that. So this is one thing that we would really like for API consumers to use. All this, of course, is well documented in our docs, but it's the one thing that I think is really important as an API consumer. Devaris will talk more about our documentation a bit later. We are, of course, curious to hear from people who have use cases for the API that they don't feel are covered in our documentation, or in general feel they run into things that take too long, or don't really solve the problem, or have just grand visions of what we should be doing. So please chime in. Email us at api@zendesk.com. Devaris will respond and take good care of you. Right. So that's something that is to come. It's like granular rate limiting. Some endpoints that are more expensive for us to run than others will have different rate limits. All right. OAuth 2 is on its way. So we've been using basic auth forever. It's simple. People get it. It's very easy. The one big criticism of basic auth is you put your password in the clear. We only do the V2 API or SSL, so maybe it's not that big a deal. But more important is that you don't need to have an API user. We can instead give you a token that gives you privileges to access certain parts of the API. For example, you have let's say you have a data warehouse partner, and you want him to be able to read off your incremental export endpoint. You can do that now. With the OAuth 2, you get the ability to just say, you have read-only abilities to this endpoint, and you can build this. So we're going to give people name tokens, meaning that you can identify certain users, and you can disable their access. You can grant them granular access to what they can see. This also means eventually we will retire basic auth. There's going to be some work there, but that's longer term. So we expect to have OAuth out this quarter. Apps, we do a lot of work on the apps and the apps API, so that's entirely for new Zendesk. We have a dedicated team for apps. I think they're like 5-7 guys. They're currently building like a new proxy. So for people who build apps for new Zendesk, they'll have much better options for using a proxy to reach external resources without having to do with cross-origin resource sharing. And speaking of that, we are going to support CORS for our API. The V2 API is SSL only, so we only host it on SSL endpoints. So if you have, for whatever reason, a hostmap domain that's not SSL, we will give you a way to access the API and use that data. One thing we're rolling out next week is JWT, which is a really interesting mechanism for doing single sign-on. So we've been running our remote authentication forever. It's a homegrown single sign-on mechanism, and we've been having that for like 5 years. And security is just hard, so we'd much rather go for a public standard, which is available now, rather than just keep maintaining our own. So we're very excited about this. JSON Web Tokens is a really simple thing to use. You sort of you give a hash argument to a method, and you give it a shared secret, which is akin to the shared secret you have today in remote auth, and it just generates like a string, and you send the string to Zendesk, and done deal. And the best part about JWT is, it's supported by many large companies and corporations. There are many open source implementations, libraries for different technologies. So whether you use Ruby, Python, C#, whatever, you the big time library. So that's sort of really brief hello from me, and short overview of what we're working on in my team currently, and where we're trying to go with the API and all the things that should be interesting to developers. Right, that's it.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, give it up for Morten.